Heated grips and fog lights as standard, a massive display and dash cams at the front and rear. With the 368G, Zontes is aiming to offer loads of equipment at a reasonable price. But what's really underneath the bodywork, is the Zontes actually any good? So, welcome to 1000 PS TV with an adventurous scooter in some rather adventurous conditions. And that's exactly why, right at the start of this video, I'd like to ask you not only to give a thumbs up to the Zontes and to me, but also to Cookie behind the camera. I did all my test rides in lovely spring weather, but now April's really showing its teeth. The moment we want to start filming, it starts raining with clouds and wind rolling in. So please do leave a like for Cookie behind the camera as well. But back to the Zontes. As you can see, it's a scooter dressed in adventure gear. This whole crossover adventure scooter category started back in 2017 with the Honda X-ADV. And since then, loads of manufacturers have jumped on the bandwagon. And now Zontes too. You can especially tell by the looks, it's got crash bars with fog lights, spoked wheels. The whole thing is designed to look tough and ready for adventure. And now let's talk about what else the Zontes can do and all the features it has. We'll go through them now in the walk around. Starting up front, I've already mentioned the front dash cam as well as the crash bars and the fog lights, all standard. Also standard is the adjustable windscreen. You can change the height in multiple steps. The only downside is that you've got to adjust it manually with 2 buttons on the side to lock and unlock it. So it's not something you can do while riding. You'll want to find a good position and stick with it. I had it set to the highest position most of the time, simply because that gave me the best wind protection. I'm 1.75 meters. Moving on to the handlebar. It's mounted quite high, which fits the whole off-road concept. And you can already tell there are loads of buttons everywhere. All of them backlit, which is a nice touch. If we start over here on the left, there's a parking brake, something I really appreciate on any scooter. Sure, we've got a center stand, but if you're parking on a slope using the side stand, it's great to be able to lock the rear brake so the scooter doesn't roll away. Then further to the left among the controls, there's a button for the fog lights, again standard. But here's the issue, the bike doesn't actually tell you whether the fog lights are on or off. I find that a shame because this is a factory installed system. It'd be really easy to have a little icon on the display showing if your fog lights are on. As it is, I have to lean forward and check manually, or at night I can see it while riding anyway. But still, it's such a simple feature. I'd really like Zontes to integrate that in the future. Then we've also got the controls for the large full-color TFT display. Right now, I'm in the adventure setting. You can choose between 4 different layouts for the display. The usual ones like sporty, urban, race, chill. And there's also Zontes' own design. With the Zontes one, you can even see a small map. The problem is, all of that works via the Zontes app. I was able to download the app using the QR code that pops up, but when I asked Zontes Germany about it, they told me that unfortunately the app isn't currently working in German-speaking countries, so I wasn't able to test the navigation feature. And the problem with the app not working continues when it comes to the dash cams. I mean, I can display the camera feed on the screen here. As you can see, I'm looking straight at the forest ahead, and I could do the same with the rear camera too. And of course, what's a dashcam for? We've all seen those wild dashcam videos, often from Russia, where the craziest things happen. I can record my rides too, and that's exactly what I did. I recorded my commute from home to the office. You can activate it once, and then it automatically starts recording every time you start the scooter. Here, for example, you can see the 1000 PS courtyard. Looks like I was fiddling around with the display. But the problem is, if I want to actually use that footage, I'd need to access the file somehow. And I can only do that through the app. And since the app doesn't work, I can't export or use any of my ride recordings. Cookie, if you want to come over again, we can have a quick look at what one of these rides would look like if we could download the data. You can see here it even shows the date and time, 6:36 a.m. That was on my way to the 1000 PS office. So I've got really great high resolution footage here. Whether and to what extent dash cams are legally valid as evidence, that depends on the country and region. Moving on, we're not quite done with the handlebar yet. Over on the right-hand switchgear, there's a button for traction control. You can actually switch the Zontes traction control off completely. That's mostly for when you're riding on gravel. I tried it during the ride, but I couldn't really get the traction to break loose. There just isn't enough power for that. Then we've got the usual controls, starter button, standard fitted heated grips, and an eco riding mode. That's supposed to help reduce fuel consumption. What I noticed while riding is that especially at a steady pace, the revs drop noticeably when you switch into eco mode. And that's how it's meant to save fuel. Whether it actually makes a big difference in the long run, well, you'd really need to test it over a longer period. I didn't have enough time for that. But the feature is definitely built in. And while we're at it, let's take a look under the seat as well, because storage is always important on a scooter. Opening up the seat, you can see there's loads of space. According to Zontes, you can fit 2 full-face helmets in there. I tested it with 1 helmet, managed to get it in at the front and the back. You do have to angle it in sideways a bit. So my recommendation, take your helmet with you when you go for a test ride and see for yourself if it fits. Under the seat, you've already got your first charging option, USB and USB-C. The second one is under the display, again USB and USB-C. And the third is hidden away inside the glove compartment. You'd think there's nothing hidden under here, but the latch is actually tucked away inside the panel. And down here, you've got another USB and USB-C port along with enough space for a large smartphone, wallet, and a few other small items. This glove box can't be locked, even when the scooter is secured with the handlebar lock, yeah? Handlebar lock. It's a feisty scooter. Even when the bars are locked, this compartment stays open. But to be fair, the latch is so well hidden that nobody's likely to find it straight away. Over here on the right, in case you're wondering, no, there's no storage under that panel. That's where the fuse box and the OBD port are. And lastly, being a proper scooter, of course, there's also a hook for your bag, right? That covers the key features and equipment highlights of the Zontes. Before we move on to riding impressions, I just want to show you a bit about the ergonomics. 212 kilos. All right, here we go. Okay, I managed to get all 212 kilos off the stand. The seat height is nice and low. I'm 175 and I can get both feet flat on the ground. That's definitely a plus. The footboards offer loads of space, not something you can take for granted in this mid-size class. I can even rest my legs up here. I wouldn't say I can stretch them out fully, but I can vary my seating position. And then up front, I've got this really wide, tall handlebar. And one thing I noticed straight away, especially compared to other adventure-style scooters, is that this handlebar is very high in relation to the seat. When I'm sitting in a relaxed position, my arms are almost reaching upwards. I've not experienced that on any other scooter like this. It's only when I lean forward into a more aggressive riding position that I really get full control of the bars. But when I'm just cruising, the handlebar does feel slightly too high for my liking. On the flip side, that high bar setup really helps when riding off-road. But anyway, speaking of riding, I say let's take it for a spin. I'll take you along for my riding impressions. But first, I've got to get myself dressed a bit warmer. Right, all bundled up. Let's get going on the Zontes 368G ADV. Not the catchiest name, but never mind. And straight away, there's one thing I really liked about the Zontes, the throttle response and the CVT. Because when you've got a scooter with a variomatic transmission, a lot of the time you get this weird lag at takeoff, that rubber band effect, as it's called, but not with the Zontes. When I ease on the throttle at low speeds, it starts moving straight away. That means in town, I can ride really slowly and smoothly and filter through traffic with loads of control. That's definitely a strong point. It's got a sharp throttle response, instant reaction, and I really like that, especially important on a city scooter that wants to prove itself in the urban jungle. But for now, let's head out onto the country roads for a bit, so I can show you how the Zontes behaves if you want to take the long way home after work. It's got a single-cylinder engine, 368cc, and that's where the name comes from. It puts out 38.7 horsepower and 40 Newton meters of torque. All of that has to move a weight of 212 kilos, which we measured ourselves on the 1000 PS livestock scale. That power output fits perfectly into the A2 license category. And the performance is really decent. It's easy to use and quite enjoyable. You can feel it pull forward quickly, up to 50 kilometers per hour. It accelerates very well. Perfect for city speeds. Out on country roads, it'll easily reach 100. And if you do need to hop onto the motorway, it'll handle motorway speeds of 130 just fine. Out on the motorway, or even already on country roads, you'll start to notice something pretty quickly. Wind protection on the Zontes is a bit of a double-edged sword. Right, before I bother any locals, let's turn around here. The scooter's actually really nimble, easy to steer thanks to that wide handlebar. But yeah, back to the wind protection. It's a mixed bag. Up front we've got the windscreen I mentioned earlier. Right now it's set to the highest position, and in these colder temperatures that's quite nice. With my height 175, it gives me pretty good coverage. I feel a slight air edge just above my helmet, but the upper body is well protected from wind. The problem is, with the lower half, the fairing has a sharp, aggressive look, which is cool design-wise, but that also means my legs get barely any wind protection. And that's uncomfortable in cold weather, probably only becomes pleasant in summer when it's really hot. As for how it rides, the suspension is fully adjustable. Up front you've got an upside-down fork, and at the rear, twin shocks. I'd say the base setting is definitely on the sporty side, but it's not uncomfortable. Just what you'd want from an adventure scooter. It's not soft, not spongy, but still offers decent comfort for everyday riding. And the brakes, single disc up front, another at the back, are from J1. They do a solid job. We've got ABS, which can be switched off at the rear if you want to go off-road. And when I grab the levers, there's a nice bite, a proper initial pressure point, so I can place the scooter precisely, whether that's carving along a country road or threading through traffic. But of course, this scooter, the 368G Adventure, it says it right in the name, it's built for a bit of adventuring. And I think it's really cool that it comes with off-road foot pegs as standard, so I can just head off and explore a gravel track whenever I feel like it. Obviously, this isn't a hardcore off-roader. I wouldn't take it on single trails, but for light gravel roads or the kind of gravel highways that are still legally rideable here, it's perfect. That's what it's built for, especially with those spoke wheels and the chunkier CST tires. It all works really well and feels very confidence-inspiring. I mean, I'm no expert off-road rider, far from it, but even I can say, this works. I always know what the scooter is doing. And that high-mounted handlebar, which felt a bit too tall when sitting, is actually in a great position for standing up and riding. It gives you good control when steering. And when I'm riding standing up, I've also got a nice grip with my lower legs, so I can control everything through my legs, keep my arms nice and relaxed, and guide the scooter smoothly over light gravel tracks. Now obviously the ADV isn't meant to do more than what we're doing here, just small gravel passages. But for that kind of light adventure riding, it's totally up to the task. And it's also well suited to touring. The seat comfort is great. Unfortunately, the backrest isn't adjustable, so you'll need to check on your test ride whether the seating position suits you as it is. But the passenger also gets a lot of space. The pillion seat is big, and if you add a top case, your passenger has something to lean against, making the Zontes a genuinely comfortable touring option. So in terms of riding performance, I'm actually really impressed with the Zontes. There's just one more point I want to mention. Let's say I've stopped here and I want to take in the view for a bit. My instinct is to press the power button, the same one you use to turn the scooter on, to turn it off again. But no matter how long I press it, nothing happens. That's a Zontes quirk. I've seen it on the other models too. With these scooters, you always have to turn off the engine first before you can switch off the ignition. So either hit the kill switch or use the side stand to stop the engine. Only then will it let you turn off the ignition. And maybe you heard that little click. That's the handlebar lock engaging. It always wants to snap into place automatically on this scooter. So the moment you turn the bars into position, click, it locks. That does have its advantages. When parking the scooter, you're far less likely to forget to lock the bars. But if you just want to park it and then maneuver it around manually, that's where things get a bit tricky. There's a simple trick though. Since we're using a keyless fob, you just flick down the side stand, walk away, and wait for the scooter to recognize that the key is no longer nearby. Then you can move it around freely because the handlebar lock won't engage. But that's it for the riding part with the Zontes 368G. We've talked about the features and we've talked about how it rides. So where does that leave us with the Zontes? Let's talk about the price. I had a look on the 1000 PS used market and saw a few dealers already listing the new Zontes. In Austria, prices start at 6,790 euros, in Germany at 6,679 euros, and in Switzerland at 6,590 Swiss francs. So that's the price sorted. Now, what's my final verdict on the Zontes? Let's start with what I liked. I really liked the engine and the instant throttle response from the CVT. I like the features, the adjustable windscreen, the generous standard equipment with crash bars and fog lights, and of course the fun stuff like the front and rear dash cams. Of course, it'll all be even better once the app actually works. Right now, in April 2025, it still doesn't. But once it does, I think those features could be genuinely useful for safety. Like if something happens in traffic and you need footage to protect yourself legally afterwards. I really liked all that about the Zontes. What didn't I like so much? First, I think there's a bit of wasted potential, like with the fog lights. There's a button for them, but no indicator on the screen to show if they're on or off. Bit of a letdown. Also, the riding position takes a bit of getting used to. On your test ride, definitely check whether those high handlebars are your thing or not. And lastly, the light vibrations I noticed while riding is not quite as refined as some of the competition in that regard. But still, would I recommend the Zontes to a friend who says, hey, I want an adventure scooter with loads of features? Yeah, I would. The Zontes really impressed me in this test. Thanks to its cool styling, solid kit, and dependable riding characteristics, I can definitely recommend it. I like it. How about you? Let us know in the comments below. As I mentioned at the beginning, leave us a thumbs up and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, cheers, and see you next time.